Hey, welcome everybody to the Indie Pod podcast. I'm your host, Super Joe Pardo, and this week I have a great guest who is got like a larger than life personality that I'm looking forward to tapping into. But first, I got to talk about our sponsor, Podbean. This episode is brought to you by Podbean. Podbean is an easy and powerful way to start podcasting. We give you all the tools. I mean, they give you, not we. I'm not giving you any of the tools. They give you all the tools you need for a successful podcast. Well, I am giving you some of those tools, but not the kind of tools that Podbean is offering. They offer unlimited podcast hosting, podcast distribution, monetization options for podcasts of any size, and live stream podcasting capabilities. Sign up today at www.podbean.com. That's podbean.com. This week's guest runs a show called the Readily Random Podcast. He is hilarious. I hope he doesn't curse all over this show, and I am looking for a warm welcome for all of you to give to our guest, Larry Roberts. What's up, Larry? Woo! You are muted. You are muted.
There you go.
Professionals at our best.
Well, whenever I sit in the green room, I like to mute myself just in case I don't know, I may have something to say. You know what I mean? So
well, you can't hear you in the green room.
No, well, that makes sense too. It's just habit. It's professional courtesy and a professional habit. So, anyways, we're here. We're unmuted. We're ready to rock.
Yeah. You know, it's funny is seeing so many of the local newscasters do their I'm broadcasting from my living room.
Right.
It's hilarious how lack of professional setups they have. Though today, I'm bringing this up because today on Fox 29 here in Philadelphia, one of our beloved reporters, anchorman, is now solely at home, and he was on the morning the Good Day Philadelphia show, and he was showing his setup, and I was like, oh, that caught my attention, because like before that they were talking about like hair tips for the new age of today, and so they go to, I can't think of his name, but I have actually met him in person, and I apologize for forgetting his name, but I have met him in person. He's very nice. I went through on a tour with him when I was working at HopeWorks, and he's awesome. So point being is that like his setup, he had like a giant, probably like 85-inch TV sitting behind him that looked like crisp, and he had like this ring lights up, and he had like monitors everywhere. Also, he could do his show, and I don't know if he's got somebody else that he's tapping into for understanding the technology that he's using, but like props to him if it is him that's putting all that together, because like it's very clear that like Seth Meyers doesn't even know how to record a show in his own house, let alone, put TVs up and monitors and everything. I will say, watching John Oliver this week, his show, while it doesn't have the same punch because there's not a live studio audience there,
right?
His audio quality did not sound as good. I don't know if he was using a different microphone. I mean, he's recording in his house at this point, but and he's recording on Saturday versus Sunday, just so that they have time to edit. But the sacrifices that these people are making is incredible. Meanwhile, this is how we do it every day, right, Larry?
Right on, man. That's exactly how we do it. We do what we do to get by. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'd say more than just to get by, because we build our platforms and a reputation was the word I couldn't think of, on how well we're able to produce shows with little to no resources, in the ways of, I don't know, giant mixing boards and lots of people that are all helping do, one person is just the donut guy, right? Like, that's somebody's job. How are we supposed to do this without the donut guy?
Right. and to play on that, I don't know if you saw the other day when I did my video, but behind me in my studio, one of my favorite pieces, it's this Batman back here, and he's actually holding a bowl of donuts. Watch. Now, why is he holding a bowl of donuts? I have no idea. I just thought it was funny, and I stuck it in his hands, and I've loved it ever since. But he's my personal in studio donut guy.
Well, that's awesome, man. That it's good that you got the bases covered. I mean, you have a whole team of people working behind you.
I do. You just don't know. You don't know.
Some night at the museum stuff, kind of stuff.
All my little figures here, they come to life, and they
Toy
put
Story
and do my edits and everything. So awesome.
So, Larry, why don't you give some background about your podcasting prowess and when you got started? How and fill us in.
Well, I got started about 5 years ago, and I started off with a totally different show. And I'm going to apologize right now. My voice is a little coarse. Normally, I sound a lot better than this. But back to what I was talking about, in that I started about 5 years ago with a totally different show. It was a comedy show, and I could tell that my reputation was TV because before we started, Joe introduced me and said, "I hope you don't curse all over the place." My first show was a comedy show that had a little cursing in it, or a lot of cursing, really. And just to play on that, many people are afraid to get started podcasting because they're not really sure what that first step is to take or how that first episode should go. Well, I had it in my head how it should go, and I had a co-host, and we had a blue snowball, a Yeti snowball, right? I said blue, but it's a Yeti snowball. And we only had one mic, and it was he and I sitting side by side. And of course, being a voiceover guy at the time, I told him, I said, "All right, Jamie, no breath noises. Don't breathe in the mic. Don't exhale in the mic. Don't do any of this. We got to be really good about it, right?" So here we are. We're sitting on an ottoman in a non-studio, and we are holding this snowball back and forth. And it was quite the sight just to see us. We would talk to them and go, "Did you ever see that Chocolate Rain video?"
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was the same type of deal. We were like, "Chocolate Rain." It was the same gig. But anyways, we were doing the comedy show, and it was so bad, and we took it to such an extreme that we didn't even release it. It was like, we cannot put this out to the public. Now, if you pay enough, no, I'm just kidding. No, we didn't publish it. It was horrible. So we slowly tuned ourselves, and although it was still a not family entertainment, it was still a lot of fun. And we even took it to the point where we had an online radio station. We took it live on stage at a local club here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and then it evolved into an open mic night for comedians. Now, I know some folks don't like open micers, but you got to start somewhere. It's like starting a podcast. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Open micer podcasters out there that you got to respect, because it's where they come from. It's the seeds of their future, So much respect to all the open micers out there, because I'm one of them. You know what I mean? Or I was. I haven't done it in a while, but anyways, the bottom line is I had to clean things up, and I wanted to take a show that contributed more, because I had gone through a strong personal redevelopment. And I wanted something that could impact other people and help them on their path to, I'll just say it, recovery. I was an alcoholic. And coming out of that, I was looking not only for strength for myself, but was looking to help strengthen others. And that's where Readily Random got its start. Now, if you listen to Readily Random today, it's not that way anymore. There's not a lot of, not that I would not welcome someone on the show, but the show evolved and it became more of an entrepreneurial show, or a success show, or a motivation show, or an inspiration show. All of those combined really point us towards our end goal of the show, and that is to let everyone out there know that you too can live larger than life.
Well, you absolutely are larger than life, Larry, and I'm so glad that I got to hang out with you at Podfest, but back in normalcy days. Back in the beginning of March, and
normalcy days.
Yeah, as I call. Great. Now I haven't coughed like all day. No, that's not true. Today I've coughed a couple times. Yesterday I didn't cough like at all. But it's refreshing in a sense that you allow your personality to come out so big and large in a show that comes out and tells you that it is not a super niched podcast.
No, not at all. And that's, that's been a huge challenge for the show to gain traction because of the fact that it's not necessarily niched. I may get a listener that hangs out for a couple of episodes because I may have back-to-back episodes that are on similar topics. But then I might just come out of nowhere and smack you with a totally different topic on episode 3. And if you're a new listener and you feel that, it can be jarring. I mean, it's just like, what is this about? What am I listening to? So there has to be a running theme to get people to hang in there and keep coming back and keep listening. And I haven't found, no, I'm just kidding. But it's hard to find that. It's very difficult to find that. But being the rebel that I am, I've never done things the way that other people do them. It's just not my gig. So I said, you know what? I'm not niching. There's no way. I'm not going to niche. And then I ended up somewhat semi-niching in the entrepreneurial space.
And that happens. I mean, my show was not Dreamers Podcast was not niched at all. In fact, it was hinged on the idea that you have a lot to learn from other people and other niches, even if you or other industries, other career paths, things of that nature. Because of the fact that it's still about people versus like, I'm only going to listen to a show about photography because I'm a photographer. Like, that's great, but there's so many things that like my friends have reached out to me and said like I learned I didn't know anything about DJing, but I understood what the guest was saying and getting at, and enabled me to put myself in that position to to be like, yes, I identify with those types of things.
That's a trip because I didn't even know you were into the DJ scene. But when you posted that last night on Facebook and I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, because I had just seen the guy. I don't know if you watched any of his videos that were on there.
I didn't. I was in bed at the time. By the time I saw your post,
he is amazing. If you can go to his YouTube channel, check him out. I can't remember his name because he's brand new to me. I'd never heard of him before. But man, he just goes straight fire on the turntables. It's crazy.
I will have to check it out. I am I've been kind of busy today, so I haven't been able to get all of my stuff out and together, and I'm still trying to figure out my garage situation of how I'm gonna set this up so I can move things around. But I did at least bring down a bunch of the cables and wiring and stuff is sitting on the shuffle alley next to me, and my mixer as well. So once I go up in the attic and grab my other pair of turntables that aren't in my in my office upstairs, I will get it up. I have to do it out here because it just it's just too loud next to my daughter's bedroom to effectively use. And now that I have all this great space opened up for all this room for activities here,
that's cool.
I definitely want to do it. But so yesterday, 2 days ago, a couple days ago, you spoke at virtual independent podcast conference number 1.
I did.
Yes, and yeah, I mean, I was definitely a time to remember for sure on my part. So, thank you for speaking there. And your topic was comparanoia. Why don't you go into that a little bit?
Well, comparanoia, there's multiple definitions to the word. And before I get into it, I watched the playback of the show, and I noticed that you had cracked a joke right before I went on, and I just left you hanging. You're sitting there going, like, are you going to respond, Larry? What are you doing? And I did not mean to. I feel so bad when I saw it. I was like, oh my God, that was horrible of me. But I don't know if I didn't hear you or if I was too scared to hearing you. I don't know what happened, but I want to apologize because I left you hanging on that punchline. And
what do you recall what it was? I don't even remember.
You were saying something about Joe Exotic or the Tiger King.
Oh yeah.
Something about it, and I was just sitting here. It was horrible. So I feel bad about that, and I apologize.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
Hey, let's talk about comparanoia and what comparanoia is. It's a word that's been put together from a couple of different words. They call it a portmanteau, if you're not familiar with the term, where we took the comp from compare and the aranoia from paranoia and combined the two to make comparanoia. And comparanoia is actually a bit of a system that comes into play when you find yourself in a position where you want to be like someone, or you may even want to be unlike someone. And that sounds kind of ironic because you're going to be one or the other, obviously. But, if you see somebody out there that's a peer per se, and you want to have what they have, or they mock you for not having what they have, those scenarios come into play both ways. And it gives you this feeling of just this giant burden on your shoulders. And you're lugging this around because you want to fit in so bad, and you want to be cool so bad, and you want to have the success that everybody around you has so bad, but yet you're holding yourself back because you're carrying around this load on your back. And comparanoia, from our perspective, is it allows you to remove that monkey or that boulder or the world, the globe, however you want to look at it, just that big weight off your shoulders. And again, it may flip the other direction, and you may want to be unlike someone. I'm fairly unique myself. I don't podcast the same way a lot of podcasters do. And in all honesty, I don't do a lot of things the way anybody else does, because I just, I am who I am. And it took years and years and years, probably took, I would say, before I really started just being me, I was probably in my early to mid 20s, maybe even late 20s. And that established so many regrets that I had to deal with, because I did strive to be ununique. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be like everybody else, but at the same time, I wanted to be me. And that can be quite the juxtaposition to put yourself in, but it all boils down to the fact that you're being compared to someone or something, and it's holding you back.
Yeah, it is super easy to look at other people and be like, why did you get, why did that person get this, or why did that person get, like, I'm going to put you on the spot. You got in Podcasters Magazine. I haven't been in Podcasters Magazine.
Well,
what's up with that? Now I feel self-conscious about myself. I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing it hard enough to warrant it.
Well, I don't know that I warranted it either, but
no. Stop. Pause. Time out. You do. So stop.
Okay. Thank you. And that's where I don't take compliments well. Never have, because you know why? Because I always, that's comparanoia as well, because I'm still comparing myself to being worthy of a compliment. And that's still something that I struggle with every day, because everybody's always lavishing me with praise and they're telling me how great I am. No, I'm just kidding. Not really. But, well,
I am. I don't.
But yeah, I did manage to make it in the April edition of Podcast Magazine. They did a little cover story on me about my journey from alcoholism to podcasting success, as they put it in the article. And it was just being, it's just timing. It's, one of our mutual friends, Brent Basham, he came through, and he has podit.net, and everybody needs to check that out if you're looking to be a guest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or, you're looking to have guests on your show, check out podit.net. But, it wasn't too long ago, maybe a month or so ago, that Brent goes, dude, you are literally everywhere. He says, I can't do anything podcasting and not see your face somewhere, whether it's in a podcasting group or a page or this or that or whatever it may be. You, dude, you are everywhere. And I think that's got to be it. I just try to be in as many places as I possibly can be at one time, to be recognizable, to get my brand out there, to get my message and my story out there. And I think that makes all the difference in the world,
Yeah, it absolutely does. And clearly it's working, and it will continue to work for you. Because of your personality, because of the platform, and because of your sense of humor and willing to beat up on yourself. It's clearly it's working.
So the more I beat up on myself, and the more self-deprecation that I present, then the more successful I'm going to be. Is that the message?
Well, if you've ever been to, I've never been to an open mic night, but if you have, like, generally those people are beating up on themselves, because it's their it's easier to beat up on yourself and be accepted for it, rather than trying to beat up on any one particular type of people or groups of people, or a person that isn't you.
Yeah, exactly.
At
that level, you don't want to beat up on anybody. You know what I mean? You haven't earned, and you never have the right to beat up on somebody. But even to just, like, what do you call it? You rib somebody or give them a hard time, and you may say something, in the comedy world, it's called roasting. And at that level, you don't have the opportunity, or you don't even have the right to roast anybody, because you are the roastee for a good 5-10 years before you make it to that next level, most likely. So you got to earn your stripes. And it's the same way in the podcasting gig. If we go back to when I started, it was roughly 5 years ago, maybe 5.5 years ago. And I've gone through a ton, and I still go through on a regular basis a ton of failure. It's not a clear path. There's not a definitive answer. I've hired at least, and I'm counting them in my head right now, at least a half a dozen podcast coaches. I still have a podcast coach. Matter of fact, I've only worked with him one time so far. Tonight, I have my second call with my podcasting coach. He's brand new to the scene for me. So, I never stop trying to progress my game. And it takes a lot of sacrifice, and it takes a willingness to beat up on yourself, because that's what's going to happen. And if you give up, or you let the comparanoia come at you and you let it weigh you down too much, you start to believe it and you start to give into it. And then with those beliefs and thoughts, those lead to actions, and those actions can be what they call in the podcast industry pod fading, where you just lose interest and you lose passion, and eventually it just fades out. Or you can just call it right on the spot and say, I'm done. I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. That episode got 5 downloads and I knew it was going to be awesome. And I'm out. I'm done. But it's just going to happen. That's part of the game. Now, I've never had an episode get 5 downloads, but I've had like 25, and that's not much better than 5. so I've had that impact, or I've had that crushing feel, that crushing blow to my body, in regards to my podcast and growing my podcast. And it's just part of the consistent evolution of the game.
Now, what's your, where's your end game when it comes to podcasting? Like, where do you hope that this is going to land you, and that, hopefully you can overcome your comparanoia to get to said end game?
I wonder if there is an end game.
End game, say, for this chapter of your life, right? Because, I hope to see you on TV at some point. So, but that's not the end. That's not the end game for this chapter. That's
right.
It could be for this chapter, you know what I mean. That's not the end game of Larry at the end of his life kind of thing. But Larry for 3, 1, 2, 5 year from now kind of thing.
Right. With the podcast, I just wanted to continue to grow. I want to continue to get my brand out there of Readily Random Media, because the podcast is the podcast of my media company. And I do some other things in relation to the podcast space, with artwork. I do cover art for podcasts. I do one sheets for speakers.
Which you do great work. I actually, soon I will be reaching out to you, Larry, for that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, man. Yeah. Most definitely. So that's something that I enjoy doing. Will I be able to continue podcasting and doing the artwork and doing all the social media? No, there's no way. So eventually I'm going to need to branch out. I'm going to need to bring a couple of people on to either do my social media or find a great artist that can do something in a similar vein to what I do. But the end game really is to use my podcast to launch me into higher platforms, larger platforms. Now you go, does it get larger than a podcast? When I say larger, no, because a podcast is worldwide. It's global.
Yep.
Now, certain podcasts have a reach that seems unfathomable. I don't know that you can have an in-game conversation without going, well, I want to get to where Joe Rogan's at. And of course, that was my dream when I first started. Joe Rogan is really one of the biggest inspirations for starting a podcast, because he said a lot of bad words. And I was like, oh my God, really cool. So, it wasn't the right path at the time, but it worked out, it got me going. But anyways, with his 20 million downloads a month or 30 million downloads a month, that's not a reasonable expectation or even a reasonable goal. And I think as podcasters, especially new podcasters, so many people jump in and they set that goal. And then when they get 100 downloads for the first month and the second month and the third month, they go, man, I'm a long ways from 20 million. This ain't going to work out. So you got to focus on something that's more attainable. And for my end game for podcasting is to simply use it to take me to public speaking, to presenting on online virtual conferences, like I had the pleasure of doing at the first Indie PodCon virtual conference this past weekend. Those are the types of things that I want to use my podcast for. I also want to help people get their message and their brand out. I have a podcast course, so I had to slip that in there,
Yeah.
I do that with the course, but I want to do it on a bigger level. I want to do it in person. I want to do it side by side. I want to inspire and help and promote other people to find their path in a similar fashion of the way that I'm still finding my path.
No, I love that, and you obviously you have a lot to offer in that vein. So so when it comes to what's one of the things that you do, and I'll give something that I do to stop the comparanoia from happening, just to check yourself.
Man, it's tough. I have a hard time checking myself, and that's where I'm lucky in that I have a wife that will not hesitate to check me. Because I'll do something similar to what
into the wall. Or?
No. She definitely gets me back on track, and she's not really kind about it. She doesn't get physical, but verbally she can be pretty aggressive sometimes. But it goes to the same thing that the same type of situation that we just experienced together, you and I, in that you had mentioned that my presentation was decent, and I was like, yeah, thank you, it's great, it's okay. And you're like, no, stop. That's what she does, but she does it a little more aggressive than old Joe did there. But that and honestly, there was a lesson that I learned, and this may be something that was hardcore for me as well to get rid of, because there was a time you can see my black belt maybe sitting back there somewhere. It's back here. Martial arts was my first love, and I was in martial arts for a good 20 years, and I'm still attached to the game in certain ways. But I always, I grew up very, very fragile, and I was 6'4", about $155 when I graduated high school. So literal beanpole, and everybody, picked on me. Plus I was born with a birth defect where I only ended up with 60% of my normal human lung capacity, because I was born with an inverted sternum. So instead of my sternum growing out and allowing my organs to grow, my sternum was growing in while my organs were growing out, and everything was getting crushed. So I had life-saving surgery when I was 4 years old, where they went in and broke my sternum in multiple places and restructured it. And anyways, the bottom line is I have a scar about a foot long and a very weird looking chest. So being a $155, playing basketball poorly, and being in the dressing room and guys seeing my chest and I'm skinny and all this kind of stuff, I got picked on a lot. So I always dreamed of just being that guy that could just beat the tar out of somebody when they mouthed off. So martial arts was it for me, man. I had to get in there, and I had to start being I'm going to say one little ASS. I had to be a badass. That's it. And I wanted to be able to beat people up. My attitude was wrong. It was horrible. And it caught up to me at a tournament one time, and where I injured a guy, and I thought he would be done. But being the warrior that he was, he came back and got back on the line, and we went at it again. And I kind of went Cobra Kai on him, because I went ahead and, I hit him right back where I hurt him the first time. And of course that hurt him again. And then not only that, I stood over him and pulled my fist back, like, I dare you to do something. I was being stupid. I got booed out of the gym, and I had gone to this tournament. It was a tournament in a different state with my instructor. So I embarrassed the tar out of him, and it changed my whole perspective. Well, one, because of the tongue lashing that I got in the car on the way back, and then the butt kicking that he gave me for a good week straight to set my attitude straight. So I knew at the time that I had an ego problem, and I let that ego problem get in the way of just pure competition and the purity of martial arts. And it was just a horrible situation to put myself in, and the poor guy that I smacked in, and my instructor in. I mean, it was, and to top it off, I worked with one of the ladies that was in the audience. She had gone to this away tournament with her kid, and she was just livid. And of course, I caught it when I went back to work. It was just, the whole thing just bit me in the backside, which it should have. I deserved everything that I got. But that's where I realized if I give myself too much praise, my ego gets out of control and my personality changes. So being aware of that makes it difficult for me to get beyond the comparanoia with compliments, because then I go, oh, hell yeah, I'm in Podcast Magazine. I'm the cat daddy. Ain't nobody as good as me. I'm ready, boy. Come on. So, I can do that, or I can go, I won. I beat the game. I'm out. I've done that before too. I've gotten to the point in certain things where I reached a certain level that I thought was the echelon, the end game. And instead of taking it even further and excelling on a professional level or a semi-professional level, what did I do? I thought, well, that's it. I've done it all. I've done everything. And that's one of the positions that I have found myself in over the years. And that's why now that I have gone through a complete life transition, getting sober, I'll tell you what, man, when you come to a point where you're going to die in the next 24 hours, you know it, you're on the couch, you're just totally blitzed out of your mind, but something somewhere clicked and said, dude, make a phone call. And I was bawling, and I called my best friend and I said, dude, I need help. And I said, I'm going to die. I know it. I just know it. Because all I'd been doing was drinking for weeks. Literally, that's it. I don't know what I consumed as far as food, but if I did, it didn't hang around for long. It was just a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. And he called my wife, and they got into action, and thankfully they came to my rescue. But after a few months of therapy and rehabilitation, I got sober, but I also had a mind shift. And my goal these days is more to help others and promote others than let my comparanoia make me be the horrible, horrible person that I once was. And I never want to see that person again. So that's one of the reasons that the comparanoia jumps on me and makes it so difficult for me to accept the compliments and to accept the successes that I see along my path to wherever it may be going. But it's all tied in there, and so many of us, we react to certain things in so many different ways because of prior influences, even going back to childhood, that we can't really control. And I don't know that it would have changed had I not become an alcoholic, had I not nearly checked out, had I not gone to that hospital for the second time in 1 year and went through a detox there in the hospital for days on end. I probably wouldn't be the same person if I hadn't gone to rehab for 7 full weeks or taken all the medication that I took for 7 long years or 6 long years. And it's just, it all comes together, to make you who you are. And it comes to a point where the comparanoia is either going to eat you alive or you're going to punch it in the nose and you're going to do your thing. That's what I'm trying to do.
And how long have you been sober for?
6 years.
6 years. Wow.
A little over 6 years. It was in November, was 6 years, November 13th. And, I'm not really one of the previous alcoholic types that counts the days or the hours or anything, but I know the day that I went in and I know the day that I came out, and I do note that, I don't go to meetings. I've never gone to a meeting outside of therapy there or rehab. I refer to it as therapy, whatever. But I have had much follow-up therapy with my rehab physician. But other than that, no, I've been sober. No, not even a beer, nothing has touched my lips other than my delicious Monster.
Well, I'm so glad that you figured out that there was something more for you other than just dying.
Yeah,
death, more than death. Like
there appears to be.
So I know when there's been plenty of times where I have felt that that comparanoia and wanting to be like, oh man, why am I the one not getting this, or why is somebody else getting recognition in my local area and I'm not getting that recognition? And I subscribe to the the universe will provide methodology, if you will. And universe being however you want to take that. That's up to you to decide. But yeah, it does seem like things always work out the way they're supposed to, and work out generally for the best, because you might not see it today, but like, oh man, like a year from now, like had I taken that opportunity, I would be like such a bad shape now, because I wouldn't have this opportunity in front of me here, or this other opportunity wouldn't have worked out for me, or things of that nature. Yeah, but I also think that sometimes as podcasters, we have to do so many things to make it work, right? From hosting the show, to understanding the tech of the show, to understanding the promotion and the marketing of the show, to understanding others, like if you're interviewing other people, understanding human beings, but even if you're not interviewing other people, like understanding at least what the humans that are listening to the show want to hear. That does give me an idea for a dog podcast where you're just speaking to dogs, or something crazy like that. Funny. Something off the wall like that. That, oh man, it's like nothing but like dog whistles or something. And I don't know. That does sound like a really good idea, especially for all the people, like once we go back to normal life, like instead of leaving like the news on or something for the TV on for your dog to listen to all day,
leave
like
the dog podcast on.
Yeah, that's just like just dog stuff. I don't know. That sounds so great. I don't know.
That sounds hilarious, actually.
I'm not enough of a dog person, but I mean, I grew up with a dog, but I'm not enough of a dog person to go into and to do that. But if somebody does that, please reach out and let me know. I'd love to know how it works out for you. But I try to use that as a way to keep myself in check, and like you, Larry, my wife tries to keep me in check as well, and in the thought process of like all the things that I do and want to do, and like, oh, like, hey, like Larry, we should totally start a dog podcast for dogs, like not dog owners, like you're not important, the dogs are important. That I can't do, I just cannot do it. I hate saying I can't. In fact, I remember my daughter just the other day was like, Dad, can you blah 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 blah, like come over here and do this? And I was like, okay, I can't. I'll be right there. And she said, Dad, you said that bad word. And I said, what? And she said, I can't. And I said, no, I know. I have to finish what I'm doing right this second, because I was like literally doing something with my hands, like putting something together or something, or fixing something, and so I guess I'm training her well.
It's fun. Did your mom ever tell you this one? She was, if I said I can't, she loves saying can't, never could do anything.
No.
I hated that saying. So I'm like, don't say it.
No, my mom had a far worse saying that I did not like, which, and I'll say it because I think I've told her to at some point. I mean, I don't know, she may or may not have ever listened to this, but it was must be nice.
Oh yeah,
I hate. Oh god, it makes my skin crawl. Like it really, really, really does.
That is so funny, man. We have them, don't we?
Oh god, like well, because my parents are divorced, so it was always oh well, it must be nice to be able to get a car or go and have a boat or do this, and I'm like, it's not me. Like I don't like. I just want to sit around and play video games all day. Like come on now, like computer games all day. Like you know what must be nice? Sitting around playing video games all day.
Yeah, it must be awesome.
Well, I mean, there's people that do it now for a living and not for like, Activision or, Nintendo or whatever. But, it's still hard. You got to come up with like storylines and be entertaining. And you can't just sit there and be like, I'm playing my video games. And that's it.
Yeah, no, that amazes me. You see Twitch. If you go to, what is it, twitch.tv, and you watch these kids play these games, and man, they'll have thousands of live viewers at the time. And I'm like, what? And they also have people donating.
Yes.
Donations going by. And I'm like, for playing World of Warcraft? I'm like, sign me up, bro. This is great. But I don't know how to make it work. I don't know how. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah. I mean, I stream video games. You can go to games with Super Joe Pardo on Facebook. You know, it's fun. I enjoy it, but it's hard to like. For me, like I get into the game. Like I'm thinking more about the game than I'm thinking about like the conversation. But I think if I mean, I thought about it at one point. I was like, I should totally have like a podcast where we sit, like we would have this conversation right now, but we'd be playing Minecraft at the same time. Like we'd be playing Minecraft while doing the podcast.
Right.
And like that I could see totally doing. But like just like with me and a couple of friends, like, you know, it's hard to make it. I don't know. I find it very hard to make it as entertaining as I'd like it to be. But an audience helps, right? Like, as you know, as a speaker, like to go and to have to speak and not have interaction is like facial reactions and body language it's very difficult because you don't know if you're saying the right thing or not. But that was one of the things, bringing it back to the podcast conference from this weekend, that having StreamYard be able to enable me to put the comments into the video. Now, in your case and in a lot of speakers' cases, they were sharing their whole screen, so they couldn't actually see the comments as they were going, but everybody else could, and everybody else was interacting with each other, and that's why I was throwing them up, because I figured later on, when you're just watching the video as recording, like on YouTube, you're not going to see the comment list right there, so it creates more of a personality to it than and I think even in some ways more than being in a room with everybody, because when you're watching somebody speak up on stage, like you can't be like, hey, that's really funny, like, or like, I do that too, like, but you could totally write it in the comments and then boom, it shows up on the screen. Now I don't know if it was I noticed it was a little distracting for some speakers who were like, they were talking and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, I'm that way too, and you know, so they don't have that that ability. But I wonder if we're like trapped inside of our houses for like 6 months to a year, if they'll develop that
I was going to bring that up.
That muscle. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, you know, but and I know you still had a topic, and I didn't mean to interrupt and distract you there.
No.
It was a topic that I was going to present, was that, you know, we are in this situation, and I'm seeing a lot more. I mean, a ton of live videos, and to play on what you were just saying there, as far as, you know, speaking to an audience and not knowing what the reactions are. It's like right now, you know, I can see your reaction, but if I see your reaction, I have to stare at you instead of talking to the camera, which goes out to everybody. And I got more comfortable with speaking to a camera by doing Facebook Live every night, you know, and that's one of my shticks. I say a shtick. It's one of the things that I do. You know, I have a 10 minutes in sub-segment to the podcast, and when I'm recording, I'm on a hiatus right now till May 5th, but May 5th, you can bet I'll be back on Facebook Live talking to a camera and hoping that I'm getting the reaction that I see in my head. Am I? I don't know. And it took me a while to realize that. I don't know. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look right at that camera. I'm going to talk to that camera just like everybody out there is enthralled. Everybody out there is laughing at every joke. Everybody out there, I have their undivided attention. And that makes it so much easier to deal with. Now, Sunday, when I was speaking on your show, the Comparanoia was really heavy because, you know, am I going to have as many viewers as these other speakers? I followed several. I think most of the morning were all just super stud speakers. And then here comes Lair. And I'm like, oh, man. I got to follow Matthew Passy. That dude's awesome. He speaks so well. I sat in on his talk at Podfest, and now I'm following him on, you know, a virtual stage. And it was so difficult. But, you know, after a while, I think I kind of got in the groove, and I kind of felt the gears change, where I was back in just talking to the camera and enjoying what's going on. And I wonder if during this recess of life that we're in right now, and I'm seeing more and more live videos or even pre-recorded videos, what sort of impact or what sort of change is that going to make on society? Are we going to see more virtual interaction? Are we going to see less out in the world? You know, are we going to transition to a reclusive spot? where we can have virtual conversations and we can have virtual games and interactions and everything that a lot of times are even easier to have and more fun to have than being in person.
I think it depends on how long this lasts. Like, I don't know. I have a hard time believing this is going to change the fabric of the way we operate our society. I will say there needs to be more esports titles going on the TV, since there's no sports of any kind, and they're talking about like, oh, well, we'll have it without the fans. And it's like, is that really the same? Yeah. I mean, at least esports is like kind of the same when they're, they're able to like talk. I don't know. I don't know. If this continues, like, I hope esports becomes a thing, though all the games that people play as esports, I don't really care for. So it's
right.
I'm not a huge Overwatch fan. I'm not into League of Legends or Dota 2 or but like if Counter-Strike was a thing and they were showing Counter-Strike on TV, I'd totally be watching it because it's super awesome. Like, I enjoy it. If PUBG was a thing, like, I'll maybe watch Fortnite. I've never played it, but maybe. I do wonder if handshakes will come back. Because listening to like one of the YouTubers I follow on YouTube, Linus Tech Tips, because I'm so into tech, he's like, I stopped getting sick like over a year and a half ago. He's like, you know how I stopped getting sick? I stopped shaking people's hands. That's what happened. I stopped touching my face and I stopped touching people's hands, and I don't get sick anymore.
Wow.
Like, and for a guy that's got 10 million subscribers on YouTube and is very well respected, like in the industry, like, I kind of don't blame him. It sounds kind of not great. Like, from a, man, you're too cool for shaking people's hands. For me as a hugger, I don't, it's difficult to say the least. But I don't know. I could probably live without shaking people's hands. I think it's a weird power struggle anyway. Like, especially like when you watch I think it was never more apparent than watching like somebody clip those videos of Donald Trump shaking people's hands together, where he's like pulling the person into him, and it's like, whatever you think of him, whatever. But like that video is hilarious because it's just technique.
Like 100% technique. It's intentional. Everything that he does there is intentional. I used to be in sales, and I've read all of Donald's books, before he became president, before the whole world started hating him. I thought he was a pretty cool cat, but I loved his show. It was great. It was a lot of fun to watch for the first few seasons. But, I started off, one of my first real jobs was selling cars. So selling cars is always a power struggle between the salesperson and the customer. And we would structure things in a way that would put us in positions of authority, even if they weren't, very obvious. We would set ourselves up higher than the customers. The chairs that the customers sat in were always lower than the salesperson. We would always have our hand on top when we shake hands. We'd shake hands kind of sideways, and we would turn, and that way our hand was on top. And just like you see Donald Trump doing, we would pull them in. Of course, it would be very, very firm as well. Depending on the person, you didn't want to crush their hand, obviously. But me being $155, there wasn't a lot of hand crushing going on. I'll tell you that. But it was all just a game, and it's just like with him. But I don't like shaking hands anymore. I will if I see somebody that, man, they got their hand out. I'm not going to go, no. I'm not going to do that. But Howie Mandel does. Howie Mandel won't shake hands.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing though about Howie Mandel, right? Is he's been that way forever.
Right.
So like you're asking people like myself who again will shake hands. It's not my favorite thing to do. Or hugging. That is more higher on that list. But to say no, I'm going to change, and now people have to feel like they're not being like, oh, is it just because it's me? Like, oh, like, no, it's not just, it's me, it's not you.
Oh, we're breaking up, it's my fault.
Yeah.
Well, people don't buy that. They don't believe that. Even if it's true, they go, no, they walk away feeling like you don't care as much about them as maybe somebody else does. And that is a difficult line to walk. But I think if you explain it, and it's consistent. If you go to a conference, if you go to Podfest or Podcast Movement or whatever it may be that's out there, and you consistently don't shake hands, it make it easier. I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's tough because all your business people, all your big timers are always going to want to shake hands. They're always going to want to shake hands. They're always going to have a 3-button polo on, and their sleeves are going to be always smaller than their biceps are, and they're going to try to dominate you and shake your hand all hard, and then you're going to be like all comparanoid, and then you're just going to walk away feeling inferior. It sucks.
Yeah, it does suck.
I've never felt that way though. I mean, that just came to me just now.
Well, I guess getting to talk about your days as a car salesman and needing to have all the things. I mean, you're already 6'4". How much higher did your seat need to be?
Well, when I sit down, we can all be even depending on the legs of the chairs. But we make every chair for customers was at one height, and we made sure that when we sat in our desks, we were over the top of them. And we would play other silly mind games. And like on Saturdays, we would have what they call cash in hand, or what was it? Cash in fist, CIF. And if you did this, then you get $100 just cash, right? And there would be different contests. And one Saturday we had a contest where I won all 3 cash in fists for the day. So I got an extra $300. One of them was to, after a couple has sat down at your desk, have them switch seats for no reason. Got them to do it. Oh, can I have you sit there, please? And can I get y'all to switch? And they would be like, what? Yeah, can you just? They would do it. And
so you would get money just for doing that?
You have control of the customer. That was the whole point.
Wow.
The other one was to get a whole family, because I sold Chryslers. And a Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, Jeep, Eagle actually was the first place I worked. And
I love my Pacifica, by the way.
There you go.
For what that's worth.
We had a Fifth Avenue on the showroom floor right by the sales tower, which is where all the sales managers sit. And the other cash and fist was to get an entire family to sit in the trunk of a Fifth Avenue. And the reason you do that is because it was a demonstration of the self-leveling suspension that the Fifth Avenue had. So I did it. I got them on the floor. I said, "Oh, here we go. Check that. Hey, you want to see something cool? Everybody jump on the back of this right here. Everybody sit right there in the trunk. Just sit there. Have a seat. Now watch this." And we go. And as they got in, I looked over at the sales tower and went, and I got that one too. And then the third one was to get somebody on their back under a vehicle. And this one was pretty easy because we also sold Dodge trucks. And
okay.
Which is a little, it's still kind of farmish up there, or it was at the time. And I had a good old boy come up, and he had on his overalls, and he was looking at Dodge trucks. And all I had to do was say, "Hey man, jump down here, take a look at the suspension, and see how beefy it is. It's just really, really, you're not gonna have any problems with this." And sure enough, he slid right up underneath there and got my third one for the day. So
oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess it's kind of a good thing from a camaraderie standpoint as well, to challenge each other to do these things, other than because otherwise I know that the life of a car salesman and a used car salesperson at that is not an easy life. You're basically nothing after the first of the month, and it doesn't matter how many more you sold over the goal, which is already astronomical. 100 cars, 120 cars, 80 was it 80 used cars and 120 new cars, or maybe it's the other way around.
I don't recall, but
yeah. There's a Good American Life episode about that, which I mean, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but I did listen for some reason that got shared to me, and I listened to most of it, and it was really interesting. I do not envy their lives.
No, it's 12 hours a day, 13, 14 hours a day. If you have a customer at closing time, you don't say, "Come back tomorrow." You stay there till the deal is done. So you may work till 11, and you're still expected to be right back there at your desk at 7 a.m. It doesn't matter. And if you take time off, what are you going to do? Odds are you're going to lose money, because if you have a customer come back, now you're splitting that commission with the salesman that takes care of them on your day off. So your day off is going to cost you money. So it's a terrible life. I'm glad that I don't do it anymore. I did it for about 4.5 years.
Wow.
At various dealerships, I'd get mad and I'd quit, or they'd get mad and they'd fire me. And then I'd go down the street for a couple of days, then go right back to where I was. And that's just the car game. Or it was then. Now, I can't speak to the car game these days. This was 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, somewhere in that area, or throughout that time span there. And, I've had one salesperson or one sales manager great friend of mine to this day. He's fired me twice. Get your rear and get the rear out. And he would kick me out, and I'd have to go down the street for about a week or two. And then old Coder would call me up. You go, you want to come back now? I'm like, yep. It's like breaking up and getting back together. You know what I mean?
So Larry, when it comes to Comparanoia,
yeah,
what's one way that we can stop before we even get started? Like what, like if you know how, like I know how to hit the reset switch, right? Like to like go talk to somebody else that'll bring you back down to earth or bring you back to the reality, or think about like, okay, well, I didn't get this opportunity, so you know, maybe it just wasn't the opportunity for me or whatever at the time. Because I mean, what's one thing that you could do before going even down that road?
I mean, the very first thing and the very first step in the overcoming the cycle of comparanoia is changing your thoughts. You have to change your thought process. And as cheesy as it sounds, and I'm not saying do this, but if you remember, what was it, Stuart Smiley from Saturday Night Live? Was that who it was, Stuart? He'd look in the mirror and go, I am somebody, and darn it, people like me. And that's very cheesy and hilarious at the same time, but it's a thought process. And if you have to use affirmations, that's perfectly fine. I have a deck. Oh, let me show you this. One of my guests who just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro just last month gave me this, and it's called, well, it's the Sweet ASS Domination Deck. What this deck is, and it's got some naughty words in it, so we're not going to read any.
Thank you.
But they're affirmations is all they are. They're daily affirmations. And you read these, and instead of having negative thoughts for the day, you take your card, whatever card it may be. I think there's, I don't know, 70 some odd cards. I'm sorry, it's 60 cards. And you take that for the day, you read that, and change your thought patterns. Now, you may not use this particular tool, but there's a number of tools that you can use out there as well. Or you can do just like Stuart Smiley, look yourself straight in the eye in that mirror and say whatever you need to say to put yourself in a position to overcome your dose of comparanoia.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because I'm going to share my screen here.
Cool.
I actually wrote a book with over 160 self-affirmations in it.
Wow. See, I wish I'd have known that.
Yeah.
Instead of his.
Oh man. Well, it's so basically it's repetitive. So like each page is one self-affirmation just written over and over and over and over again. And then I used the inverse colors. So like instead of black text on white paper, it's I used like a paintbrush, black background with white text, and painted letters onto each page, and there's hidden messages throughout the entire book, like kind of like a flip book.
Dude, that is so cool.
Yeah, isn't it? It is really cool. I actually got some great feedback in on the Amazon reviews, but the thing is you know, if they just didn't get it. That's the way I look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they weren't your audience, so it's not a big deal. And that goes back to the comparanoia. I got some bad reviews. Hey, you got bad reviews because that wasn't your audience. So you know, you don't even let that negativity get in the way of pushing your book. I didn't know anything about this book until just now, and I've known you for at least 6 months, 8 months.
Yeah. Wow. I guess you haven't been to my website and clicked on books, because I have 4 of them.
Maybe I just didn't notice it, because I think I've been on your website. But anyways, I didn't know the book existed for whatever reason. Maybe I'm just not a good friend and I hadn't perused.
That's all good.
But my point is that, you know, you can still push that book. That book can still be a saving grace for you. It can still be something huge for you if you don't let those negative thoughts step in, because the negative thoughts lead to the negative feelings, and the negative feelings are depression and anxiety, and it holds you down, all because somebody you don't know, Johnny Underpants 23 on Amazon, gave you a bad review on your book.
They were disappointed because they loved my first two books, and they said that this book was so disappointing. I mean, obviously, I have two great people who wrote very positive things to say about it. In fact, Danielle Watson, who is a big time guest on my show, Dreamers Podcast, and good friend of mine, she actually wrote the foreword for this book because I reached out to her and was like, "Hey, I had this idea. I'm going to do this." And then she, like 3 days later, she wrote back to me. She's like, "So I wrote a list of things that you could do with this book. Would you like me to send it to you?" And I was like, yes, I would, because I didn't know how to start it out. And so she wrote like the first two pages of the book, explaining how to go about using the book. Because even myself, like while I had the idea, and I did it in 10 days, Larry. 10 days this book was all on Amazon. From the time I woke up, I fell asleep, and I woke up with this idea of like, I just watched the Banksy documentary.
Okay.
Did you ever see that?
I did see that, yes.
Yeah, it was really was Exit Through the Gift Shop. And I woke up, like I went to sleep, woke up and was like, well, repetition artwork. What if I did that with words? And then so I grabbed my phone, I wrote down like 60 or 70 self-affirmations, and then I went to sleep. And then when the next one, I wrote down like 50, 60 more, and I wrote more and more. And 10 days later, the book was on Amazon called I Self-Empower. Yeah. And it's funny, I put this book, The Sales Won't Save Your Business book, on hold while I developed the I Self-Empower book, even though it was such an easy process that I was like, you know what, I'm going to stop, I'm going to do this, and 10 days later I'm going to have a book that looks like nothing else, because that's what you do because you know what, because of the bring it back Comparanoia, when I come up with an idea, I immediately go and Google it to see if somebody else has done it, and I was like, oh, no one else has done this. I was like, I don't know if it's a great idea or a okay idea or a bad idea, but it's an idea that I'm not finding it, so I should be the guy to do it. And then 10 days later, I did it.
And it's a unique idea. And it's something you were motivated to do. And you weren't trying to be like somebody else. And nor were you trying to be influenced to be someone else from an outside influence. You were influenced and you were inspired to write this book. And that inspiration, 10 days is amazing. Daddy, I wrote mine in 20. And I brag about that. And now you've got
wow.
Insane.
So I think this book took like 3 months to do, because it's all the pictures are hand drawn in it. There's Anthony Hayes for anyone that knows that guy and loves that guy. But the second one, I was like, oh, I am totally not coloring in Sharpie marker. So I was like, you know what? It's a coloring book now. So we're going to do the second one as a coloring, but same types of images, same types of artwork, but just you coloring, because you know what? My hand was ready to fall off, and I think this book took a little over a month to do. And the reason being is because I already had the talks, so I already had like everything I wanted to put into it. This book took 10 days, but hey, this book, Sales Won't Save Your Business, took 2 years to write. With like a real, like, I mean, I used editors for the first 2 books, but like this was like the next level of, a much more expensive editor, and I had an interior designer versus me doing the interior design for the first 3 books and that kind of stuff. And I love it. And I'm still looking to do my 5th book at some point. I've just been kicking around ideas and, but yeah, so I would say I love the self-affirmation idea, so that you don't get to that point where you feel bad or sorry for yourself that you're not getting where you want to be. I would also recommend, so Kanye West has a book that I would absolutely recommend. Yeah. So it's a book for people like me who I write books for, is people who don't like to read books, because I'm a very slow reader. So like, I'm going to pull it up here. I don't know if it's still in print, but it's, and I have it, let me see here. Oh, yeah. Thank you and you're welcome, because that would be what he would call it. Here, I'll pull it up right here so people can see. So it's called Thank You and You're Welcome. And it basically, what's funny is when was this written? Because it kind of reminds me of like my 31 life-changing concepts, even though I didn't buy this book until well after that book. Like I bought the Kanye book like 2 years ago or something. So it was, but he had wrote this back in 2009, and I don't know if it's really small. Like it's only 6.5 inches. I guess there's no pictures in it. There's a lot of harsh, I guess not a lot of harsh reviews, but yeah, it's a really neat book that if you're looking for like self-affirmation type of things, like totally something to go check out for $10. It's pretty cool. And predates my book, which I didn't even realize that he had a book to begin with. But yeah. So in conclusion, because we got to wrap it up here because we're already over an hour here. What's one thing that you say back to yourself? Like, what's one self-affirmation that you find yourself using to not to ward it off, to ward off comparanoia?
That's, I can't really say what I say because I tend to use a little more exotic language.
Exotic. All right, Larry, exotic.
It's really just you've been there, you've done it, you know what it takes to avoid the burnout, you know what it takes to avoid the arrogance, you know what it takes to avoid the pain that's caused by the comparanoia. So don't let it affect you. I know where I was with my martial arts. I know where I was at a point with car sales. I know where I was at a point with artwork. The list goes on and on and on. But I always, for whatever reason, it was comparanoia. I don't need to say for whatever reason. It was some version of comparanoia. I bailed. I bailed. And I'll leave. I'll leave you with this. I've never. I don't think I've ever publicly shared this, but I went to some fights because I was fighting in MMA at the time, and I was scheduled to fight this night. And we drove and drove and drove, and we got to the venue, and it's a bar in the backwoods of Louisiana. So it's in a bayou, literally, and pretty scary looking place. And we go into the bar, and it's a pretty scary looking place. But I'm like, whatever. This is cool. I've fought before. This ain't no big deal. I'm gonna crush whoever I come up against. It doesn't matter because I didn't know who my opponent was other than a name. And we do the weigh-ins. My opponent comes out in a Scream mask. So he's wearing a Scream mask, and I'm like, what is this crazy son of a gun doing, right? So the comparanoia really started coming in. I was going, this guy's so cocky, so confident that he's wearing a mask. He has got so much experience that he's going to crush me. I'm here with UFC level fighters, and I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to get crushed. I'm going to get destroyed. So what did I end up doing because of the comparanoia? And it wasn't fear. I wasn't afraid. I had lost before. But this was different because I was comparing myself to my coach at the time, the gentleman that we went down and trained with that came to corner us was the corner of Tito Ortiz and all the big names back in the day. And the day before, he had questioned my conditioning. So I got questioned by one of the gods of the game. And I knew I was being compared to some of these gods of the game. And win or lose, I was scared because I knew if I won, then I'm going to be expected to fight even harder competition the next time. And will I win there? Will I beat that person? Can I? I've only got 60% lung capacity. Who am I to try to compete with these people that have 100% lung capacity? I'm in a competition where we're beating each other in the face, and I'm trying to compete with these guys. So the night before the fight, we weighed in that day. And then that night after the weigh-ins, I got sick. I got sick, quote unquote. And I backed out. And I sandbagged. And I had so much comparanoia that was weighing in on me. Then after Saul had said that my cardio was questionable, that weighed in on me even heavier because I worshiped this guy and I wanted to fight under this guy's tutelage. And he was not impressed. I let it get to me. And not fighting that night. And I was still at the fights because I cornered a couple of fighters. So here I am at the cage. I'm sick. I'm too sick to fight, but I'm not too sick to corner. And, of course that looks stupid. Everybody knew I chickened out. And that is a feeling that I never, ever, ever, ever want to experience again. So that was 20 some odd years ago. And it still weighs just as heavy on me today as it did then. And that is really my go-to each and every time. And again, I've never told that story on a podcast or anywhere, really. I keep that one on the down low. So that's the real truth. That's my real motivation. And if telling your truth is what makes you relatable or makes you overcome your comparanoia, then by all means, always tell your truth. And there you have it.
It's crazy to think that a guy in a mask could put you off so much that you're, willing to kind of look silly.
Well, it's even worse than if I had gotten beat. If I had fought and gotten beat, I would have still had the respect of my peers for fighting.
Right. Well, somebody's got to lose, right? Like, yeah. You're not coming out both winners.
Right. But I still would have had the respect. But instead, I got sick and backed out and was still at the fight. I mean, it was just, the whole thing was stupid. I was an idiot. And it wasn't just the guy in the mask. I don't want to use that as the overall emphasis. That was definitely a contributing factor. But it was the day before, the cardio comments and the company that I was with. I mean, my coach is a UFC fighter. I mean, we were on the same team and he's crushing it at the time. And I didn't want to let him down. I didn't want to embarrass the team. We have the same tattoos, for Christ's sake. It was really important, and it was important, but I just let it get to me. And I compared myself to everybody around me and I let it weigh me down and I let it ruin a perfect opportunity. So there it is.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Well, yeah, now I feel great. I'm going to go into the rest of my day kicking rocks. Here we go. No, I'm just kidding. Not really. But, it's a true story and it's a painful story. And I hope somebody can get something out of it. But don't let your comparanoia take away your opportunity to shine on the big stage.
Absolutely, Larry. Thank you so much. Please give everybody how they can reach out to you and learn more about you and hopefully check out your talk. It sounded like you were going to have that available for people to watch.
Yeah,
you absolutely should.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. The talk that I gave is going to be out live on my website and it's going to go live on Facebook. You can find me at readilyrandom.com. That's my website. I keep everything fairly straightforward, fairly simple. All of my social media is at readilyrandom, so I'm easy to find there. You can email me at larry@readilyrandom.com. Ask me questions, come at me with whatever you got. I'll be happy to help any way that I possibly can. And check out 1 + 1 = podcast on Udemy. It's a great course for beginner podcasters.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Larry, thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak on the Indie Pod podcast. This has been a non-live production, which has been really weird for me. But in a way, it's different because it's been so long since I've done a not live podcast.
Right.
But I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Larry.
I gotta say, I totally appreciate you fitting me in where you can get me in. The non-live aspect of it is probably tough after being live for so long. But I greatly appreciate it that you worked with me on the time, and I was able to take advantage of this perfect opportunity to be on the Indie Pod podcast along with Super Joe Pardo.
Thank you so much, Larry. Yeah, I'm glad I was able to make it work as well. And so when this does go, I'm not sure how, because I have like 2 more shows that I'm gonna have to probably record not live coming up here soon. So I don't know what to say my next guest name is going to be, because I'm not sure when this is going out, but when it does, probably in like a week or 2, I absolutely hope that you reach out to Larry and tell him, share your Comparanoia story with him.
Come on with it. I'd love to hear it.
All right. This episode has been brought to you by Podbean. They also offer Podbean's live stream. It's a unique platform for turning your podcast production into a live show and is open to any podcaster on any hosting site. You can easily invite multiple co-hosts and guests to join the live stream, earn money from live show ticket sales, and get listener rewards. And engage your audience in new and exciting ways. If you're ready to get started, sign up today at www.podbean.com/live. That's podbean.com/live. I hope everybody has a great week ahead. If we're still quarantined when you're listening to this, I hope that life is not coming to an end for you and your family, and everybody's able to be safe and distanced at the same time. So take care, everybody, and I'll see you on the next episode.